Hello, my name is Julia Potter, and I am the director of the Geotechnical Center of Excellence at the University of Arizona's School of Mining and Mineral Resources. It is an honor and a privilege to pay tribute to two individuals who have left an indelible mark on the world of geotechnical engineering and the mining industry at large. Today, we honor Pete Stacey and John Reed's contributions to the science of geotechnical engineering and to collaborative efforts and organizations such as the Geotechnical Center of Excellence and the Large Open Pit Project. Pete and John's illustrious careers highlight their ability to delve deep into challenges facing our industry and to harness the power of collaboration in finding solutions. Whether it is knowledge sharing, mentoring, or spearheading groundbreaking efforts like the origins of the Large Open Pit Project, Pete and John's legacies exemplify the power of teamwork and camaraderie in advancing our field. In December 2023, the GCE sat down with Pete, John, and members of the industry to celebrate their remarkable careers, discuss their legacy, and explore how their work has impacted the geotechnical community as a whole. We present those interviews here as a testimonial to the lasting impact they've both had on our craft. Please enjoy.
My name is Everett Hook, and I'm here to introduce John Reed and Peter Stacey. My first meeting with John was 50 years ago on the Panguna copper mine on the island of Bougainville in Papua New Guinea, where he was an engineering geologist. The mine was planned to be a very large open pit, and even in early development in the 1960s, it was briefly the largest open pit in the world. John Reed has over 40 years of experience as a practitioner and consultant in the mining industry, with special interests and expertise on rock slope stability. In 1990, Dr. Reed began his own geotechnical engineering practice. Since then, he has specialized in slope stability and open pit mine slope design and investigation tasks in Australia, Fiji, Papua New Guinea, Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Canada, South Africa, and Zambia. From 1994 to 2004, he was Deputy Chief of CSIRO Exploration and Mining and Executive Manager of the Queensland Centre for Advanced Technologies in Brisbane. I would like to introduce Peter Stacey, who I have known since 1975, when I moved from the Royal School of Mines in England to Vancouver and joined Golder Associates as a consulting engineer. Peter Stacey arrived in Vancouver at approximately the same time as I did, and we worked as colleagues until I left the company in 1987 to take up the post of Professor of Rock Mechanics at the University of Toronto. We continued to meet sporadically as consultants on various mining projects around the world. One of these projects was the Chuquicamata mine in Chile. This is one of the world's largest and most productive open-pit copper mines. It has now reached a practical limit of 1,000 meters deep and has been converted to an underground block caving operation. John Reed and Peter Stacey have had major roles in editing the 3 books illustrated in this slide. These books were published by CSIRO Publishing in 2009, 2018, and 2013. They are 400 to 600 page books covering open pit slope design in weak rocks, and the evaluation of water in pit slope stability. Discussions on many topics related to slope design and slope behavior are presented in these volumes in chapters by authors with open pit mine design and operation experience. Emphasis is on the practical rather than the theoretical topics, and a wealth of information on every aspect of open pit design and operation is provided.
The motivation behind forming the LOP project was a need, a recognised need for research directed at open pit mining, looking at how we designed open pits, what are the mechanisms of failure, of open pits. Why did that happen? How can we investigate them and then design them in such a way that we can improve their stability, improve their reliability, and improve our methods of design. So the books supplement that work. The research is actually directed for a particular top. What is the effect of groundwater pressures on the stability of a particular slope? And how do we account for that, and how do we investigate it? The books follow up behind that as putting that in print, if you like. They form guidelines, chapter by chapter, of the processes that you have to go through.
But before the open pit, LOP was initiated, the Hook and Bray book on slope design did talk to a small extent about open pits, but it was largely slopes in general. And the CanMet book on open pit or open pit designs also didn't go into too much detail in pit slopes.
No, that's correct. It had a lot of slope design work. Plus, it never became a full manual.
Yeah.
I think there were only ever 3 chapters.
Well, it talked about pit slopes, it talked about hydrogeology, it talked about open pit in general, but not in a lot of detail, which is where the open pit slope design, guidelines for open pit slope designs came in.
Unbelievable. Now it's translated into Spanish, it's translated into Portuguese.
Yeah.
And quite recently I've had an inquiry from a company in China. So there's still, all this time later, yes, there's still people want to read the book.
When I think of Pete and John, I think of people that have really made a huge difference to the mining industry as a whole. They brought new ideas of how to bring people together to solve a problem around geotechnical. And that ability to bring people together that are experts in the field to solve problems has made a tremendous difference in our industry.
I think they're certainly people who I hold in high respect, and really the people at the top of their game. A lot of wisdom, a lot of experience, and really 2 guys that you really want on your team.
Well, when I think about Pete and John, I think of the movie Kingsman. There's a scene in the movie where the hero says, "Manners maketh the man." And Pete and John are absolute gentlemen in our field. They always have time for everybody. They're always welcoming with everybody. The way they conduct themselves is, as absolute role models, has always been something that I find very special. They are doyens in the field, yet they are very much down to earth, happy to talk to anybody, happy to engage with everybody, always making sure that even the shyest person in the room has an opportunity to speak their mind.
So when the names Pete and John come to mind, I actually think of Reed and Stacey, not Pete and John, and I think of the factor of safety table I studied extensively at university, and then I think of the guys that I've met through the LOP and the work I've done with them.
When I say Pete and or John, the first thing that comes to my mind obviously is the LOP book. As a design engineer, they were often reviewing my work, and they often had all sorts of hard questions, which made me go back to the table and rethink and think hard about things I was actually doing or saying.
When you say Pete, what is the first thing that I think of? Really just external review, rigor, that attention to detail, and that constant positive feedback, I suppose, is really, and a lot of mentoring over the years. You know, I first met Pete back when I was at Clone Crippen. Actually, I was late 20s, and that's when we brought him in as external review, and we really needed him then.
Well, the elder statesman, I guess, of the LOP. John was the originator of the LOP, dating back in 2005, thereabouts. And Pete took over later as chair of the LOP Management Committee. So both very pivotal in the running of the LOP.
So when I think of Pete and John, I guess the first thing I think of right off the bat would be the LOP and the LOP guidelines, because that's been something that I've been quite interested in throughout most of my professional career. Going back a little bit further, when I think about Pete, I also think about his time as a consultant because when I was a junior engineer 30 years ago, I had projects where Pete was the senior person and he wouldn't have known who I was, but I certainly knew who he was.
I think of Pete, I met him in Botswana. He was on the Geotechnical Review Board for Debswana. I was with De Beers at the time. And, Pete, was already really well known at the time and well respected globally as a leader in the geotechnical field. And really, once you get beyond that kind of global presence and global reputation, it's just that he's such a very personable person, and such a, he never, even though several decades his junior, he always treated me as an equal, which is a powerful thing when you're a young person in the field, to be treated not as an inferior, but as a peer.
When you say John Reed or Pete Stacey, I think of the Guidelines book. I haven't had the opportunity to meet them in person besides today. And the Guidelines book has been very helpful for me in my career. It's something I refer to often. So as someone who's newer in their career, I'm very grateful to them and their work.
The first thing that comes to mind when I think about Pete or John is excellence in geomechanical practice, and particularly for the application to open pits.
So the first thing I think of when the name Pete Stacey and John Reed come up is giants, mentors to me throughout my career. I really only got to know them midway through my career, but they had a huge impact on how I viewed my job and how I viewed my contribution, to try to pattern it after what they had already contributed. So that they mean a lot to me from the perspective of mentors.
I've known John Reed almost as long as Pete. So I replaced John Reed, and he had big shoes to fill in 2014 when he stepped down. And then he played a role as a mentor and gave me a lot of advice on the best way to run these projects. It's not easy keeping a consortium of multiple sponsors with multiple mandates and multiple personalities interested in a project like this. And I fully learned to appreciate the kind of qualities someone like John Reed needs to have to keep this thing running. He ran it for, at that point, about 14 years successfully, and having such a big impact on the industry at large through the development of the guidelines, and which eventually became 4 other following books in water and weak rock.
You've got to get out and about and walk the talk and talk to people, and then put it together in such a way that they know that the research you're going to be doing for them is exactly what they want to do, and they're going to give you money to do it, and you're going to produce a product. In the earlier days, companies were very much wanting to spend, well, some of them weren't even actually interested in research. Those that were wanting to spend research for their own purposes. Yeah. And then there became an awareness from this combining thing that actually there's a great deal to be had from, well, I call it group therapy. Everybody getting together, and in fact there was a great benefit for your company and Peter's company to share the same information that my company was using. So information sharing, suddenly company management realized that actually there was a net gain in this for them, so they were happy to contribute. So I think the really important word in here actually is communication.
I think the other point is that the gradually increasing number of sponsors sponsors involved in the LOP is a pretty good example, a pretty good demonstration of how good the LOP has been and how useful it's been to the respective mining companies.
I think the book was actually part of my basically involvement more with open pit mining, both from a professional point of view, when I was still maybe a consultant, but also as an academic. I mean, it's difficult not to teach slope stability without looking at the book. Now, we're using the flowchart, we're using the content. So you have to basically train the future geotechnical engineers about open pit mining, and it's difficult to do that without referring to the book.
Before I get involved and engage in the LOP initiative, I was familiar with the guideline for open pit mine design, a masterpiece, a piece of art which is authored by John Reed and Peter Stacey. And I always encourage my students it's a must-have book, you need to have it in your library, for sure, not just to pass the course, but also it's an incredible reference for your future career. When I got involved into the LOP back in 2016 as the deputy manager, I've had the honor and the privilege to work with John and Pete directly, closely. What I learned from them is passion for research and of course looking always for effective solution for industry problems. It's been an incredible journey so far, and I look forward to work with them and learn from their wealth of expertise from these two legends, industry legends.
So in terms of little stories, I think for Pete, it was the days we were spent climbing around the pit slopes in Tokapala, and I was keen to show Pete that I had a really good understanding of the geomechanics and the large-scale instabilities, and Pete's huffing and puffing behind me as we climb across all these benches, and I'm waving my arms, and Pete's saying, "Yeah, Mark, I can see it. Yeah, there's toppling failure here, but let's go back to the office."
Remember one time, a colleague of mine, Luis Castro, and I had done a slope design for a pit in Bolivia, and we had Pete review it, and Pete pointed out some things that we hadn't thought of for the slope design. And years later, when that pit actually went into production in Bolivia, Graham Major went to the site to check it out, not knowing that Gold had already done the design, and actually the guidelines Pete had put in for when we hit water worked. So it's amazing, very grateful.
I did one course with Pete Stacey a long time ago, I think, through EduMine. But yeah, always someone that I looked and inspired me to become, at least get as close as I could get to him in terms of knowledge, knowing that it's going to be very difficult to reach that one. But yeah, it's nice to set the bar and have a goal. So Pete was a big reference.
Yeah, if I think about the more social side of John and Pete, if you ever have trouble understanding anything about wine, what wine is good or not good, they've got a wealth of knowledge in that regard. And I guess it's thanks to Pete that I now understand what the history and how well Carmanier goes with steak.
When it comes to Pete and John, it just blows my mind sometimes that I get to work with these guys in the industry who help develop the foundations for geotechnical engineering. I mean, people who are electrical engineers don't get to meet Tesla, but I get to meet and work alongside Pete and John, who are founding fathers of the industry. It's amazing.
I can recall one particular story when I was flying out after an LOP meeting in Chile, going through the airport. And there was this one dodgy little lounge that you had to go downstairs. And as I was walking past, I walked past the stairs, and as you walk past the stairs, there's a little window. And through the window, you have a view to a small little office area. In that office area, I saw Pete and Derek Martin busy editing a chapter for one of the LOP books. Very animated, very engrossed in what they were doing, but drinking red wine.
What's enduring is I was involved in a GRB, a Geotechnical Review Board, with Pete. Pete was chairman, and it was quite a difficult one, and we worked quite hard to get the president of the company to be in the audience at the closeout. And anyway, the president and his offsider did turn up for the closeout. Pete delivered the message. It was long. It was over an hour, but Pete, you know, he's a big guy, big voice, talks with authority. And anyway, at the end of the meeting, I'll never forget this, is that the president said yes, yes, yes. and then he said, "This is gold." And that to me cemented all the work that we had done, and also I think cemented the value that Pete brought to that GRB.
Well, I think probably the most interesting anecdote about the LOP and the guideline books in particular. So one of my jobs was to manage the technical work after the large Bingham Canyon main failure. And there was one source of information on things such as factors of safety and such that we went to all the time. And that was the guideline books that they were instrumental in making it happen. And so their ability to gather all this knowledge from all these different experts and put it into one guideline book actually helped us manage this huge failure. And so that's, to me, says a lot about what they did and how they've done it. And so I couldn't speak more highly of two people that have had an impact on the knowledge and capability in our industry.
You know, as you're moving towards retirement, as I am, it's very important to know what people think about what you have done during your working periods, and hopefully it's going to be very positive, makes you feel good into retirement.
It's a very difficult question to answer. I mean, what has been my impact on the LOP, and in turn, what impact has the LOP had on the industry?
Yeah.
Now, I would like to hope, as Peter said, that the guys will say tomorrow that our impact has been good, not bad, and that the impact of the LOP on the industry has been remarkable. So I'm hoping that that they would think our combined impact on the whole deal is positive, and for the well-being, and hopefully that someone else beyond us, that they will see that they will want to become a cheerleader going ahead, something like that.
Increase it going forward.
Yeah.
Hey Pete, when I heard they were putting a tribute together for you, I couldn't resist but want to share the story of how we first met. It was back in 1991, and I was looking after the geotech and hydro sections of a feasibility study in Venezuela for a coal project. I was there for about 4 months, quite a tough project, and then eventually got back to the UK just before Christmas. Almost immediately I arrived, a call from the client saying, "When can you come back? Our review board consultant wants to meet you on site and go through your work." I was thinking, oh, really? Anyway, who is the guy who's the reviewer? What's going on? It's this guy called Pete Stacey from Golder. I said, look, I've never heard of the guy. Tell me about him. Oh, look, we'll send you his resume. Anyway, email comes through, and it's this quite lengthy resume from this guy with at least 25 years experience, and that was 30 years ago. Anyway, went through this and thought, this could be a bit difficult because the group I worked for actually beat Golder on the project. I thought this will be a bit of a beat 'em up, and this guy trying to say that Golder should have done this and you were terrible. Anyway, got back to site to be encountered by this booming giant of a man, about 6'5", with a very loud voice, thinking, uh-oh, this could be a bit of trouble. Anyway, first meeting, we sat down and he looked up and said, I've had a look at the report. I quite like what I see. What you've done here is very nice. I think we can work together on this part and make it a little bit stronger. But the bottom line is you and I need to work together to get this done right for the client. I was thinking, oh my God, he's actually here for the client. What a gentleman, what a consummate professional. It was an absolute pleasure. Really enjoyed my time with you on site and really ever since. I do recall before we left Venezuela that one of us, I'm pretty sure it was you, split their pants, and we spent a nice time shopping in Caracas for a pair of shorts. You might think it was me, but this is my story, so I'll say it was you. Anyway, since then, it's been 30 years. Your support, guidance, friendship over the years have been fantastic. Working with you on a variety of projects, met you on the LOP project, plenty of involvement at Kennecott with TEG reviews. It's been wonderful. I can only wish you and Pat all the best in whatever you choose to do next. And just thank you again for your time. You're a wonderful man, a geotechnical legend, and it's been a pleasure.
I'd just like to thank Pete and John for everything they've contributed to the industry and for the time they've spent with me and the work I've done with them. It's been amazing.
So a personal message to both Pete and John is that I'm very grateful for the opportunities I've had to work with you and your positive mentorship throughout my career. And I hope that we will have lots of additional encounters in the future. So thank you very much.
Pete, I'd just like to say a big thank you for all the personal support that I've had over the years, and the time you've always made time for me whenever it's a quick phone call or a quick Teams call or whatever it is. That's always been very much appreciated. Thank you.
Pete, John, thank you very much. You have developed a very wide amount of information and knowledge about the research and the practice in geomechanics, in rock mechanics, and in particular to its application to open pit stability. And that has had tangible impacts in the effectiveness, efficiency of operations, and importantly in the safety of operations. And we will continue to learn from you, and thank you very much.
John, Pete, thank you for what you have done, for sharing your wealth of knowledge, and for training the next generation. Thank you.
Pete, please take my personal well wishes. I'm very grateful to have gotten to work with you and listened to you and talked with you over the years. Not as much except through LOP, but very grateful for that too, especially the guidelines for sampling and testing, and just working with you on LOP was reward enough. I'm so grateful for that. Thank you.
I think the entire industry owes a huge debt to both John and Pete for their initiative in, firstly, John developing the LOP and then Pete steering it through that difficult transition period as we were getting it back up to speed. So I think the industry owes them a huge debt, and in particular I'm very grateful that I had the opportunity to be part of that.
Job well done, and thank you so much for what you've done for me and the industry as a whole. It's made a huge difference.
I would just like to say a thank you to both Pete and John for their contributions to our industry. I think it's really important, especially for people like me who are earlier in our career, giving us the opportunity to learn and having such a breadth of knowledge in one concise spot to look. And it's been nice finally getting to meet them today.
You know, also say congratulations, to both Pete and John for, having a distinguished career, for making a significant impact on a very important industry. I think that's something that not very many people can, take with them when they're retired, to be able to look back and say, this is something that makes an important impact in terms of our global communities and society. And having been, able to initiate and help to drive something that's important, I think, as the LOP, and bringing, the industry together in terms of seeking, better ways of doing things, minimizing the impacts that mining can have, enhancing safety, productivity. All these things are really important. And they start from people who put in that time and effort to bring a larger group of people together. You need the people who can herd the cats. And I think that's a really important thing to not only respect, but to be very thankful for. So thank you, and congratulations on all the successes that you both have had.
John Reed, Pete Stacey, I've known both of you since 2007. You've had immeasurable impact on my career. You've been great mentors. Technically, yes, just powerhouses on the technical side, but it's really your personalities and the people you are that I walk away with, and that I cherish, and that I'll always remember. And thank you for our interactions.
Thank you to both John and Pete. Thank you for coming out and seeking me out in the crowd and shaking my hand. Thank you for providing those books and the mentorship and all the discussions. It's been great.
Well, Pete, I wish you very well. You've been very important for my formation, my career, as someone that I always look forward to get your inputs and learn from you, and someone to aspire to be, to have the same level as you are practicing. So thank you very much for that. I wish you all the best. Thanks for all the help and service you provide during the GRBs that are involved with me, and and tech. So I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Well, if I have to give a personal message to them, it's like, thanks for basically having raised the passion for other engineers. I mean, I'm here working on open pit mining because I read your books, and I kind of learn from your experience, and maybe even kind of jealous of your experience, because you are very big names in the industry, and this is what we aspire to be.
Pete, John, it's been an amazing journey. I do wish you all the best in the future. I've learnt so much. I respect you both, so thank you very much.
I guess every young engineer, not young anymore as I'm standing here, but when I met them, they always look for a figure that they can follow, a figure that is a leader in the field, somebody that can guide them, somebody that you can talk to, somebody that you can relate to. And John, Pete, I can very much relate to you. You are absolute fantastic mentors, absolute fantastic leaders, and I do want to thank you for what you have contributed to the geotechnical engineering fraternity. Without your contributions, we'd be back in the previous century. Thanks.